chapter in our series of discussions on how it is that we heal, discussing health, healthcare, and holistic approaches to health and healing. We've been talking about managing the environment of healing, managing the environments of healing, understanding the parts of the holistic model. Now, what we suggested in the previous discussion on managing the environment of healing is that all aspects of the holistic system respond positively, within systemic limits, respond positively to the relationship that occurs between them and the surrounding environment. All right? We see this play out in our physiology. It is the metaphor, but as we move through now, body, mind, and spirit and environments, as we move through these aspects, we see that in all these aspects, the relationship between ourself and the environment and that interface, the border between the two, is how we can begin to cultivate health. All right? And how we can begin to cultivate health in a way that allows the self to be empowered in the healing process. So, when we ask the question, how do we manage the environments of healing? Well, we're going to look at, of course, the four basic aspects of the holistic healing model. The four basic aspects: body, mind, spirit, and then the environments. And we'll be viewing these. When we manage the environments of healing, we're engaging these parts through both paradigms, looking through both the lens of the objective empirical approach to understanding health and healing, as well as alternative, self-driven, empowered ways of knowing and understanding our holistic healing system. Okay. Now remember, the holistic approach is a biased approach. Biased in the sense that it's the self, it's the subjective wisdom that we're using to drive the healing process. Okay? We engage conventional approaches to medicine, absolutely, but it is no longer the expert out there that has our health, okay? That has control of our health. We engage these experts to assist us in supporting, managing, cultivating our own innate health, and healing. And we are acknowledging that there is a subjective bias to this approach. The holistic approach is biased to subjective innate empowerment. Something that has been lost. And really, that loss is driving, for me personally, fundamentally, this whole discussion. How do we re-empower ourselves in a way that allows us to embrace, to own that which is rightfully ours, our own health? Okay? So, we start with self-knowledge. You are empowered, okay? You always were empowered. And from this self-knowledge, our self-exploration of how it is that we feel, how it is that we're doing, okay? Through a process of listening to the holistic system. How am I in my body? How do I understand things in my mind? What is the context, the vision, the purpose, the sense of being part of something bigger, and being part of something bigger than I am, and in alignment or in coherence with a larger system, okay? It's a felt sense, it's a seen sense, it's a heard sense, it's an intuitive sense. All of these come together, and this is valid knowledge when we are looking at or coming from the subjective alternative paradigm, allowing us to make choices that do in fact have an impact on our health, and do in fact have a measurable impact on our health when we use empirical scientific ways of measuring things. When I meditate, it makes a difference that is measurable in my physiology. Okay, so we know this. So it's a top-down, general to specific approach, this idea of managing the environments of healing. So it's a top-down strategy. One example would be simply nutrition and food. A top-down strategy isn't necessarily about taking all the perfect right vitamins for things. A top-down strategy is beginning broadly with whole foods. Let's eat whole foods, all right? Start from this place and then become, depending on our needs and the response of our physiology, become more and more specific about what types of whole foods, what combinations of whole foods, in order to support a most full expression, robust expression of my physiology, okay? I'm not trying to micromanage that process. I'm just creating a whole food diet whereby the innate wisdom of the body can extract what it needs. So all the materials, all the nutrients are there in my general engagement or bringing in an environment that supports my physiology. I don't have to micromanage it. Does that make sense? We've got to do something. So we bring something into play, more general first, and then getting more and more specific, finally getting so specific that perhaps we need to engage experts. We are accountable and committed to the process, so we implement, okay? We track and assess. You know, all the rage is about evidence-based medicine these days. But we can have self-driven, subjective, evidence-based medicine. Track how we're feeling, okay? Journal, gather feedback. Evidence-based medicine isn't solely the domain of empirical science. We can use self-driven, subjective, evidence-based tracking. Acknowledge the wisdom of that knowing and adjust. We listen to the holistic system and note what's going on and respond to it. So listening is a huge aspect of this process of managing the environments of healing, okay? Managing the environments of healing implies that we do something, okay? It implies that we do something. We need to do something. We need to be in relationship with our holistic system. It is a dance, okay? So it's not only that we listen, okay, with our wisdom. How do we feel? What's going on? What do we see and hear in terms of our relationship with the environment? But not only do we listen, we also respond, okay? So it's a dance. Now, we do something and we need to be accountable to it, okay? If we do it once, if we have one whole food meal, that's only going to go so far. So there needs to be an accountability or a commitment to a way of life. Okay, managing the environments of healing. Providing the body what it needs to express its own innate wisdom, body, mind, and spirit. We begin to exhibit and live a coherent, robust, expressive way. Cultivation of all of who we are. Health means whole. Okay. So, what are these environments of healing specific to the body? Well, we already noticed a few of them, or have talked about a few of them. With the body, we're interested in the stuff and matter of who we are. This is our anatomy, physiology. It's our brain and our blood cells, our lungs, and our fluid systems. What are all the aspects of these systems, okay? And how do we give them what they need? We're cultivating the soil out of which the seeds of our innate health can begin to express themselves throughout the systems of our anatomy and physiology, okay? Now, We already know this, flat out. So managing the environment of the body is nutrition and it's exercise, okay? First and foremost of these two, and then managing the environment of the body gets into therapy, okay? Ways in which we respond to dis-ease and dysfunction in our bodies, yeah? And this can be both alternative and conventional, all right? So we can have therapies that inspire or restore movement to our bodies, okay? So we've got the exercise and the nutrition, but then we can have body work modalities, all right? But also, remember, this plays out in both fields, objective and subjective. So restoring movement to the body can be things like yoga therapy and massage, but it can also be physical therapy, a little bit more towards the objective, scientific, biomedical approach to healing. It could be things like surgery to free up movement. Okay, so we can do lots of different things to begin to engage the environment of the body. But when we're talking about surgery, we're way down into micromanaging the health of the body. And remember, when we're talking about this holistic approach, we're talking about a fundamental belief in an empowered person, individual self, that is beginning to engage from general and then moving more specific as the need may be. Okay? So nutrition and exercise. Well, how do we engage exercise generally? We'll do something. Okay? Doesn't even matter. Go for a walk around the block. Studies have shown time and time again that simply a 5-minute walk around the block has incredible ramifications for supporting and calling forth the health in the body. Okay? And then depending on what our needs are, we can get more and more specific. Do we need cardio types of exercise to support certain dysfunction or needs within our body to begin to call forth an expression of health that has either is lying dormant or has become dormant in our bodies? All right? We do the same thing with nutrition. We can use therapies to do the same thing too. So we begin to explore combinations, or importantly, strategies of all these different areas. Start with the self and what you do know, and then as needed begin to engage experts to help you design that strategy that can be maintained throughout your life in a way that begins to support and dance with specifically the environment of the body, that calls forth the functioning, the healthy functioning of your physiology and your structure in your system. Okay? So there's a general start, but this is what we begin to engage with. Then we're back to, again, we have to do something, okay? We have to do something, we need to commit, we need to be accountable, we listen and respond, we adjust, and we engage with and commit to a dance that continues throughout our lives with the holistic system that becomes itself an expression of coherence and beauty. Itself becomes an expression of holistic health. Okay, so managing the environments of health. Let's continue on and look at the mind now. What are the environments that we can manage or engage with in such a way that they begin to call forth, place a demand on, within systemic limits, place a demand on that aspect of ourselves that pertains to the mind. Okay, this is our consciousness. This is our emotions, our sense of self. Okay, and this then is the realm, the domain of psychology, all right, and behaviors and habits. So what are the environments that cultivate then a healthy self? Well, the pathology, the dysfunction, the dis-ease of the mind, these are, this is trauma and stress and chronic pain issues, and our relationship to chronic pain, okay? Now, techniques such as visualization can be used. Techniques such as meditation can be used. We can turn our attention to our behaviors and habit theory, okay? We can begin to develop ways, use techniques to cultivate commitment and accountability in terms of our responsiveness of the self to the needs of our physiology within the environment that we exist in, right, and that we're dealing with. So we can also think about how do we cultivate environments that facilitate the health and not only the health of our neurons, which you could say perhaps is a body issue, but the health of things like memory, cognition, so that interface between the body, synaptic interfaces and neurons, with that non-corporeal self that is us, okay? And so we can support the seat of the mind, right? The brain. We can support the brain by putting ourselves in situations like learning situations. So education, learning a new instrument, or learning music, or learning a different language. All of these things place demand on our learning structures that support our brain, synaptic structures that in turn support the health of ourself and the capability of ourself, the responsiveness of ourself, in order to be able to negotiate in relationship to the demands of the environment around us, to be able to also integrate holistically the body and the mind. Dropping down more specifically, we can say there are certain types of learning environments that may be more pertinent and useful to you as an individual versus another person as an individual. So beginning to drop down into specifics that are tailored to your conditions. So general to specific, and then we listen, we pay attention, we track, we assess. Is it useful? Is it making a difference? If it is, great. How can we enhance that result? How can we enhance that effect? If it's not, then we adjust, reassess, readjust, and re-engage with, at a general level, other contexts, other environments. So very much managing the environment. You manage, cultivate the soil, allow the plant to grow, all right? Allow the plant to grow and produce the fruit, you know. This is the mystery of life, but we can be in relationship in such a way where we are empowered in facilitating that process, okay? This is the holistic approach. This is the holistic understanding. Okay, now what's so interesting about this whole discussion is that many of the techniques, for instance, meditation could be a technique that affects both the body and the mind, and as well can be used to cultivate the spirit, okay? The meditative process, the meditative practice now can be also used or turned to cultivating the experience of spirit in our holistic system. Now, what is spirit? Spirit is that which is beyond the body-mind, something bigger than ourselves that we have a sense of, that we have a feel for being connected to, and ultimately it can be a situation of having a non-dual, at one with the world around us, the cultures and peoples around us. So spirit, something bigger than ourselves. And an important piece, though, of spirit is this notion of being in tune with, in alignment with, in coherence with bigger systems. But one of the things in terms of managing the environments of spirit is to create a sense of ritual or ceremony. So when we talk about managing the environments of spirit, we're looking at engaging in activities where we bring an element or elements of ceremony and ritual. It's very much creating activities where a threshold is crossed, where we move from what we know as a self into the unknown. It can be as simple as walking out into nature. And this is very true for very many people. It can be as simple as crossing the threshold of a cathedral and moving into sacred space where the self is known to be, understood to be, felt to be part of something much bigger, part of something that intrinsically cannot be known through the self, and yet part of something which we can bring ourselves into alignment in such a way that it has reverberations all the way through the holistic system. Okay, so spirit, many techniques, but fundamentally those techniques serve these underlying processes, ceremony and ritual. Crossing a threshold in a way that guides us and in fact affects body, mind, spirit in measurable ways. We know this. Studies, empirical science has investigated this, many studies, and seen the positive effect or impact of spiritual understandings and awarenesses as it reverberates throughout the holistic system. Okay, so many techniques. Again, we can, the door is open to us. We can engage with spiritual practice. We can notice, we can assess, we can journal if it makes a difference. Great. How do we deepen that effect? If it doesn't make a difference, we can readjust, reassess, and determine the level to which we want to shift to other spiritual practices, other ways of cultivating spirit in a way that has an effect on our holistic system, right down to the physiology of our cells themselves. Okay. Spiritual techniques can be contemplative practice and prayer and meditation, ritual, retreats, okay? Communion, service can be a potent spiritual practice that transforms a person, okay? And transforms the challenges, for instance, of perhaps body dysfunctions, body dis-ease. So when, as an example of why spirit can be important, is that when we can't get our healing processes happening, when the body doesn't heal, we can turn to spirituality to create a bigger context that transforms the whole holistic system in a way that makes a profound difference, a healing difference in that person, in that holistic system. Now, it sounds kind of convoluted, but we could also think about the environment, part of the holistic system, and how do we manage the environment within which we exist and live, all right? You could say, how do we manage the environment of the environment to keep a parallel with how we've been talking, but essentially, how do we manage the environment within which we work and live and breathe? So there is the environment of our ecosystems. Okay, ecosystems being, of course, big picture ecosystems, the flora and fauna in our locale, in our continent, in our planet, but also the ecosystems of office and home and car, Okay, so all of these are our physical ecosystems. And can we manage them? The answer is yes, we can. How do we manage those environments in ways that facilitate and support our health? All right? And there are multitudes of ways to do that. The point here is to bring our awareness to it, look at the world around us, the environments around us, and learn how it is that we can shift or make adjustments in such a way that those environments support the coherence of our system all the way up and all the way down, okay? You know, this could be things like noise pollution. This could be the level of toxins in our environment. This could be ergonomics at work, okay? All of these things. They can be more empirically Western, scientific based. They can be also understood and adjusted and balanced through things like more alternative approaches. Feng Shui, sense of energy, energy flow, all of these things are incredibly important and useful and effective. So how do we manage our environment? How do we manage our social environments? Okay? Family and friends and support systems. All of this, of course, too, is important. There can be big shifts and changes that we can look to, but even the smallest ones have an effect. That's the thing. Remember that small changes can have huge impacts as it drops down into cellular levels within our physiology. Okay? So all of these things are important. We cultivate the big picture. We allow the innate wisdom of our holistic system to respond to the environment. If our holistic system is not responding positively in a felt sense to the environment, we make adjustments to the environment such that it changes the response or the relationship between our holistic system to that environment, whether the environment pertain to more body or mind or spirit or the environment itself. We make those shifts. We note, we listen. What is the effect? We listen in to the effect and enhance the effect if it's positive. If we do not get a response from our system, body, mind, or spirit, then we make adjustments, okay? All of this is accessible to us. We do not have to be experts about anything except for ourselves. The genius is in us. We just need to learn how to listen to it and to respond, to engage in the dance, all right? Use a variety of techniques to engage each of the environments of health, okay? Use a variety of techniques to engage, for instance, with the body or the mind or the spirit. Turn to the environments within which we exist and make adjustments there and note how it is that our system responds to it. Assess using both objective and subjective criteria, okay? There are times when we need to measure, okay? We can't intuit necessarily blood sugar levels. Blood sugar levels can be a measurement that can be very useful in supporting our empowered self to make decisions about how it is that we manage environments of health and specifically, in this example, environments around the physiology, environments of the body, nutrition in ways that support our overall health, okay? Responsiveness and flexibility and resourcefulness with regard to the demands of the environment around us. Okay? Make adjustments, engage in the dance, listen, respond, track, re-engage. Okay? Listen, respond, track, adjust, re-engage. All right. If you're stuck in one area, oftentimes we get stuck with disease or dysfunction that both Western approaches and alternative approaches in terms of our physiology cannot figure out. All right? When we get stuck in these ways, you can still continue to interface on that physiological level, but don't forget the other parts of the holistic system. Engage the mind, use visualization. We know that visualization techniques, as one example, are effective in affecting physiology. So when we see ourselves whole, we become whole. When we see ourselves in our mind's eye as exercising, our muscles get bigger. Crazy stuff, but it is what we know to be true. We've, in alternative worlds, always known that to be true, or for a very long time known that to be true. Empirical science is now supporting these ideas, okay? Supporting these ideas with controlled studies. So if you're sick in one area, turn to other areas and use those ways and use those doorways to engage health. We can always engage in the healing process, and we can always heal by recognizing, acknowledging, listening, and engaging with all the aspects of ourselves. We make ourselves whole and we heal by definition. This is about the fundamental beauty, joy, and perfection that is in you always. This process, in very many ways, is a process of remembering ourselves, remembering all of who we are, listening to all of who we are, and revealing or allowing all of who we are to express itself